Hi everyone. I want to jump in here real quick and just do a quick little review on what we do with the full size winding way when we get to the end of the row. We had from our Wednesday Wonders class today a couple of questions, and I thought I would just simply address it right here. And we'll create this little video and explain it. So if you're just joining me now, welcome. I'm glad that you're able to come in. This will be recorded, and so you can come back if you've missed the early part to begin with. We're going to focus on the 4.5 and the 5-inch winding way. I have it already stitched out in this pattern here and have overlaid the template on the path that was previously stitched. And so normal use of it comes right along through here for our stitching path. Once we get down to this end, then we spin the template around. Let's see if I can do that without really messing everything up. And then we would be ready to continue and do our next pattern. But you can see we've run out of fabric. And so our row ends at the border. So here's where we ended, and we now start our next pattern. We'll follow along and stitch to this point. When we get here, I place a small mark on my fabric right over here at this location, and you don't really need one down here. But once we stitch to this spot, then I stop with my needle down, remove the template, stitch in the ditch to my marked spot for the next location, return the template, and then finish my pattern. If you're doing this within a bordered block or an area that has a finished or fixed edge on it, this is how you would terminate when you get only a partial pattern. If you are going to be later cutting it off right here, trimming it down, and not using that portion, if it's a full edge to edge all over, then it would be fine. You wouldn't care about that. Once you have completed here, then you need to determine where your next row is, and we're going to stitch this out, so I'll be able to show you all of that. We're going to determine where your next location is to begin again and return in the opposite direction. So let's see if I have any questions real quick like. It looks like so far we're good to go. Let's move this out of the way. I have a sample of fabric right here that's already marked, and we're going to work on that. Right here, let's readjust the camera just a little bit. Right here you can see I've marked just a solid dark line. This is going to represent my outer edge. It's about 1/4 of an inch beyond where my edge of stitching is. I have placed a horizontal center line down through the middle here, and because I want to add 1/4 of an inch separation between the two rows, I've added my second center line at 5 inches, plus the 1/4 is 5 1/4 inches. So when we are stitching, we'll start at a line on the center marks, stitch to the B, spin the template around, line it back up, finish our pattern again, finish our next pattern, ending down at wherever it is at the A location. Once we're here, we're going to spin the template around again, still at A, lined up on our marks, stitch wherever we are in the outer edge. So here we are just having a margin that'll end up being cut off later, but we'll still do the same thing. Mark where our next starting point would be, straight stitch over and finish that last portion of the pattern. Let's do that quickly. I'm not real sure just where a pattern is going to start and stop, since we're just doing a practice run on this. We're going to start with our needle right on our marked line. Pull up that bobbin thread, hang on to it. I like to put them underneath my foot, it's your call. I have my etch line, which is my center horizontal line, is right on top of my marked line. That's the only thing I need to really worry about. This template is fairly good size and has several little peninsulas in it, so I have a lot of stable tape on it just to kind of help me hold it in place. Main thing is you want to not get underneath any of these little peninsulas as you're stitching. Move your fingers around, stay on your center line. Has lots of curves. You don't have to go too fast. Stop periodically and reposition your hands as you need to. Okay, we're still on our marked line. Once we get to the B location, leave the needle down, leave the foot in place, and spin the template right in place around the foot. Now we're lined up and we'll repeat. We're only going to get a couple of passes out of this one, patterns, because I don't really have a big piece of fabric. But you can see how quickly you can cover some territory. If you get off of your center mark line, just reposition the template back in place. So now I'm at my end of that pattern and I'm almost at the outer edge, but I still have a little more room out here. We'll spin the template around again. Now clearly I don't have enough room to repeat the full pattern. So what I want to do here is come down. I have another marked line across here. You may not see that. It's a dark blue line. Just kind of for my reminder that I'm getting close to the outer edge. You can use a spacing line disc if you want to. You can also use your spacing gauge. You just want to put a mark in there to know about where you're going to start this portion of the pattern. So now we'll stitch around. I'm mostly off the edge, so it's kind of hanging up on my grid glider. When I get to that blue line, I'm going to stop because to me that represents the edge of my margin. Now I'm going to spin this around so you can see what we're doing. Notice I have A right here. So when I return the template back in place, I still want A right there. But I have to travel around the foot until I get over to the thread slot because I don't want to break my threads. Lift my foot, take it out. Now we will stitch in the ditch down to my marked location. So if I had a border along here or a seam line, I would be right in the ditch of that. You can see how that works. We will now return the template. Want to make sure that when we put it back in place that we still have our A back over in the right area. So we slide back in, work our way back around. Now, I have to find where I was. Went too far. Find that center line. That's going to help a lot. Here we go. Here's my center marked line, and you can see that our stitches are in the path right along here. So we now, keeping that straight on our marked line, we can now finish this portion of our stitches. We don't have very far to go, and stop right at that marked line. Here we are almost to the edge. Now we know here is the location of our second center line. So if we were to stitch in the ditch down to that location, we could start right at our B location and work our way back. If we wanted to offset our pattern any at all, so our design is a little more random, we could start with the center vertical line here on that outer edge. But let's just put this back in place, lower that foot. We can't start here. We haven't traveled down yet. We're going to overlap where we were. So let's stitch in the ditch. This is the straightaway template. And with it, we can perfectly stay in the ditch where we need to go and helps us line up where we need to be. Now, when we put the template back in place and come back to our B location, we can center and align right on that marked line. I'm going to turn it this way so you can see where we're going. To go back for that next row, we're just going in the opposite direction. The template is the same whether we're upside down or not. So when we spin it around, it doesn't matter. I'm really close to the edge of the fabric and there isn't much of anything to hang on to. You want to just make sure that you don't get up underneath those peninsulas. And I like to have my finger out there to hold them down, but I can't quite get to it and move the fabric too. Downside of working too close to that outer edge. If you get off your center line, just reposition and go back. Spin it in place. We don't have to maneuver through it. We just spin in place and realign and go again. So today, on our Wednesday Wonders at 1:00 p.m. Pacific time, which is a weekly program, we demonstrated the small size of the winding ways and how to stitch that out. It's a little different because it's not a full pattern. You do the top half and the bottom half, and then the top half and the bottom half. And a question came up about what do you do at the end when you're using the 5-inch template and you have an 18-inch row. Well, obviously, it's not going to space out the numbers correctly, so I wanted to just show how we can maneuver that in. And I'm just going to stop when we get here to this location so we can take it out and take a look. So this was an impromptu little live session. There was no advance notice. And if you were able to gain anything from this, then I'm happy to have done this for you. Let's raise the camera a little bit. And turn off some of these lights. Sometimes they make a glare and make it more difficult to see. So here we are. With the 5-inch winding way, started right here, did 2 full patterns and a partial down at the end, moved over for our next row and started our return path going back up. Now, if you wanted to be a little more determined in your placement, so your loops here kind of fit differently, then that's perfectly okay. It just takes a little bit of figuring that I didn't do. The instructions that come with the template will show you how to do that. The main thing is to remember you have a 5-inch template. You want to add 1/4 of an inch, could be a 1/2 inch or more, but you add that fraction of a number to the width or the height of your template, and that determines your placement between your two center lines. So I hope this was useful information. Next week on Wednesday, we'll be taking a look at a different template. I believe it's going to be the coils templates. And so join me there, and I'll see you at 1 o'clock on Wednesday.